Giant Stalker, Crypt Stalker, Demon Stalker, Rift Stalker, Grom Stalker, Crypt Stalker, Scourge Stalker, Windrunner, I'm a bone elite skill hunter. A death dealer, a life stealer, that's just the cost of being awesome.
Welcome to episode 219 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Dark Brew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
I'm Delirium from Thrill of the Wild, the Warcraft Hunters Union, and at Delirium Hunts on Twitter.
And I'm Artemis Hell from the Warcraft Hunters Union and at Artemis Hell on Twitter.
Okay, today is Sunday, June the 14th, 2015, and we are broadcasting live on twitch.tv. You can participate in the live chat room where our lovely moderator, Ali Sonder, is there to take your questions. And speaking of questions, we know patch 6.2 is right around the corner. So our question for the chat room today would be, what are you most looking forward to in patch 6.2? And maybe we'll answer that ourselves at the end of the show. But like I said, we do have a lot to cover today, and hopefully Bendak will chime in because there's some stuff that's right up his alley. But before we get into the World of Warcraft news, Delirium, I saw this first, I guess, on your blog, Thrill of the Wild. You had some news about Hearthstone and our favorite guest and friend of the show, Michelle Morrow. So why don't you talk about what exciting news there is for her in Hearthstone? Or not.
He's taking his dogs out. So,
is that right?
Okay, he just joined back.
That's awesome.
Hey guys, sorry. The dogs just went crazy all of a sudden.
I tossed it over to you. And you were nowhere to be found. Yes, exactly. But I said some nice things. I don't know if you heard it or not. But anyway, I'll go ahead and tell you. For those who don't know, Michelle Morrow will be doing the voice of the new Hearthstone hunter hero, Illyria Windrunner. And I think we'll have to, it won't be free. I don't know when it's coming to the game, but for $9.99, you will be able to have Illyria, be your Hearthstone hero for hunters. And you'll get to hear her doing all the voiceover cool stuff for that. And they had a nice little YouTube video that they did to promote her doing that. So that's very cool. She's finally going to be a Windrunner. And Ali, I'd probably throw this to you if you're there. You probably know more about Illyria than any of us. What's her story?
She's Sylvanas' sister. She was married to Ronan, wasn't she? I think she was. Or maybe not. One of the sisters was married to Ronan.
Was it Terralion? I thought it was like Illyria and Terralion were the pair.
Well, they're married as well, but nobody's seen them in years. They're lost somewhere in BC. And I think she may have been running around in Dalaran all these years, and she may have been the one that was working with Jada to kick the Blood Elves out. Not entirely for sure, because there's, 5 or 6 Windrunner sisters, but I think she was in the novel about the end of the last expansion. And I think that Sylvanas was plotting to, spoiler, bring her over to the Forsaken side. But I'm not for sure on that either because I didn't read the book. I just heard Anne talking about it. But yeah, she's one of Sylvanas' sisters. So, but yeah, really excited about that. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It's interesting. I would have thought if they were going to do another hunter hero that it would have been Sylvanas. I mean, that she seems to be a more prominent figure. But so I was a little bit surprised that they went with someone like Illyria Windrunner, because after Sylvanas, as you said, there's like a whole bunch of sisters. They all sound the same, I guess. They all seem the same. I don't know what differentiates one from the other. It seems like Sylvanas is the most distinct. But
yeah, it sounds to me like they're pulling pretty heavily from Warcraft 2 and kind of that era of Warcraft gaming, where Illyria was a much bigger deal. I'm told. I didn't play them back then. But it sounds like, Rexxar was a much bigger deal back then, and Illyria too, so that seems to be the direction they're going.
Yeah, perhaps so. Anyway, it's very cool. But so finally, Michelle gets to be a Windrunner of some sort, so maybe not Sylvanas, but I'm sure we'll have to get her on again and talk to her specifically about this and what it was like to be a part of that, because I'm sure it was pretty a whole heck of a lot of fun and pretty exciting. But hey, It's $9.99 out of my pocket now, I guess. I'll have to throw a little bit more money at Hearthstone just for this.
I haven't
do
even
it for
been playing
Michelle.
Hearthstone recently, but I'm gonna pick it back up, and I'm happy to spend $10 to have Michelle's voice in my ear all the time.
That's right.
That sounds
Oh
like
my
a great
God.
deal to me.
Sounds- You should
All
tell her
right.
that.
Yeah, sure she would love to hear that. Welcome her, Michelle, for her final episode and final appearance on the Hunting Party podcast, thanks to Delirium.
Way to go, Delirium.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to Michelle on this gig. All right, so let's talk about patch 6.2. We think it's going to be released on June 23rd. I don't know that we talked about this prior to the show, that if they've officially given it as a date, other than they've given the 2-week shutdown for season 1 of PvP. So have they given the date, I guess, for that? So they officially given the 2-week warning for that, Artemis?
I mean, they put a blog last week out saying the PvP ends in like 2 weeks, and they're teasing that all these new builds on PTR are going to be release builds, so there's hope that it's going to be on the 23rd. We don't know for sure, but I expect next week to be a patch week.
Yeah, that would make sense to me, and I think other people, the sort of the conspiracy theorists out there, have been sort of pointing to, was it Final Fantasy game having a big release that same day, so that Blizzard would want to do that to kind of keep people engaged in World of Warcraft and not wander off someplace else at that time. So
I kind of feel bad though, because they always say they don't want to do anything, they don't care about what other MMOs do, but yet they keep doing stuff like this. Where they like release stuff on top of beta releases or any new expansion releases for any competitor game. So I don't know.
yeah, I've noticed that with other games too, and I don't think anyone would fault them. I certainly wouldn't want to fault them if they wanted to try and get their content out, to compete with, their competitors. So it would make sense to do that. Want to give people playing WoW, give them the new stuff, and keep them here in Azeroth. So I have no issues with that. But so we know patch 6.2 is going to bring us the Shipyard, the Tanaan Jungle, the Hellfire Citadel raid. I guess we'll talk about that one a little bit more. And then they also said at a later patch, 6.2.x, they are finally going to give us flying in Draenor, despite having said they would not. And they kind of came to their senses, if you ask me, and are going to introduce that. So I'm excited to have flying back. How about you guys?
I'm excited for flying. I really think what they're doing with getting flying into the game is pretty smart, because it's like a nice little compromise. They want you to see their content. Fine. Go get your treasure, go explore the little lands, and go do all the quests and actually do their content. You can go fly around, go fly around Draenor.
Yep. How about
It's
you,
not that
Delirium?
bad of a compromise.
Yeah, I liked it, and for the first time in a few weeks, I logged in on a not raid night to the main server, and started collecting treasures and making sure I had all my explorers done. I already have lore walkers, so it was quick and pretty painless to finish up. And it was fun. I had fun looking around, getting those things, but I wasn't probably going to do them for just the 5 achievement points or whatever you get.
Yeah,
So it was cool.
Yeah, no, I think the tying it to the Lore Master and some of those other achievements is the right way to go. I guess my only gripe with it is it's like all of a sudden things that I had no interest in going out and finishing or doing now are like the single most important things that I feel like I need to do in World of Warcraft, because they're tied to getting the ability to fly. Right. So I just sort of feel a little bit like a little rat in a maze now. It's like, oh God, it's like this is some psychological experiment. There's a study to be made here about people and behavior and getting them to do things.
It was better than making you dump like 100K though. It actually
absolutely
is. You're gonna feel so good when you get flying. Like just be like, yes, I did everything. I'm good to go. Look at me fly.
Yep, exactly. And not only that, they're going to let you fly in the Tanaan jungle as well. So, it's very much like the Timeless Isle 2.0, if you want to call it that. But you were grounded in the Timeless Isle for the entire time you were there. And it sounds like we'll actually be able to start flying around in the Tanaan jungle as well, which I found that to be a little bit unexpected. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah, well, we don't know how soon this 2.x is coming out.
No.
It might not be when Tanaan is really relevant.
No, and they did mention that the reputations where you have to get revered is going to take about 2-3 weeks. That's if you're doing them, every day. The dailies associated with them every day. So it could take, about 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks for some folks, if they're going a little bit slower. So it's not going to be, it'll take that long, even, just to get the ability to do it. And then you actually said you have to wait for them to put in that little bit of a patch. So, but cool. But I think it was the right decision. So we'll look forward to that. And I think that Arth is now joined us on the call. Are you there, Arth?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
And we can hear you just fine. Hey, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks. So, in advance to anyone listening who's like, "Hey, Art's here. He's going to talk about stuff." I'm probably just going to pop in and say hi, since you guys can talk about WoW at the moment, and I really can't. So, but I was real happy to hear about the Michelle thing. I caught that on Twitter this week, and that was real exciting. And actually, one of my questions that I was going to come in and ask was, I was going to be like, "Hey, Ali, tell us about the lore." So you guys already covered that, so that was great.
Cool. So you're finished with World of Warcraft then? I mean, you're not playing at all, not even.
Yeah, I would always love to come back. The problem is, it's always just real life. But I don't do casual well, and so if I came back, like, I'd want to dive back in. I wouldn't want to just sort of run some quests, see the lore, stuff like that. Like, I'd want to dive back into raiding and working on different things and min-maxing, and it's just too much of a time commitment. So I may still pop back at some point. I haven't totally ruled it out, but it's just not been in the cards. But certainly miss it at times, and miss the community as well.
Sure. But you still follow the game. Obviously, you pop in here every now and then, and still. So are you keeping up on? Some of the things going on in the game a little bit?
More or less, yeah. I caught some highlights from the Q&A the other day, and a lot of it was talking about stuff that, like, I wasn't really up on, but it seemed to be a generally positive response, and I'm sure you guys will talk a little bit about what the devs talked about there. I know it was Lure, and I forget the other guy's name, but and that was, a really positive thing, as well as things like the Michelle Morrow Hearthstone announcement and stuff like that. So I try to stay a little bit in the know. I always gravitate, I gravitate towards this stuff anyway, so I can't completely give it up. And hopefully people can see it. My profile picture that I've got is actually me in my, like, Hunter Ranger costume. So if it's hopefully it's showing up on the Twitch page. So you can see, like, the leather shoulder armor and stuff like that. So, like, I've found some other ways to do fun things that are Hunter-esque even without playing WoW.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the feed now, and you can see it there. Yes, you've got, like, the.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, the whole Oliver Queen look going on.
Yeah, no, and I've actually fired my longbow. It's badass. Like, I'm terrible with it, but I can at least. It looks like I know what I'm doing, and most of the time when I fire the arrows, you can tell, like, which bullseye I was aiming for.
Solid improvement.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm actually hoping to get some more practice with that. I do a lot of, like, the Renaissance festivals with friends and stuff, and that's a blast. And it gives me a chance to do some of that. And there's something real cathartic about actually, like, firing a longbow. And there's other things you can do at all those, like throwing axes and throwing stars and things like that. But I always go to the range and practice with the bow a little bit. So it, you can take the hunter out of the game, but you can't take I'm gonna fuck that up. You know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say.
Game out of the hunter, but not the hunter out of the game, or the hunter out of the game. But I don't know. You know what?
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, though.
It's not early in the day, but it's apparently maybe it's too late in the day for my brain to handle that.
I poured an afternoon beer for myself, knowing that I was going to be listening to this. I'm nowhere near, like, episode 200 drunk, but it's my first beer. But it was a homebrew that I made a few weeks ago, and I've been quaffing it as we speak.
Well,
So what are you brewing?
There were, like, 3 things came in at once. What was the question?
What is quaffing?
Oh, drinking.
Neat.
Yeah, it's a fancy word. Snoopy always used it because he would quaff root beers in his World War I flying ace persona.
Well, you know what you need to check out, and Artemis can attest. Her latest project is, what is it, ethermead.com, and there's all sorts of World of Warcraft class-themed drinks on there, including a couple for hunters. So you should go check that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I've done my own home brewing for years, and that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, anything that's WoW-themed like that would be awesome.
I mean, what do you have up there for 100 drinks now? You have the Cobra shot, and what was the other one that you did?
I have an explosive shot, but I still got to post a recipe on it. It's a shot that I lit on fire. It looks like a dynamite.
Explosive shot. That sounds like it could be terrible, but
it'll hurt. Can't confirm. I
haven't tried the Cobra shot yet. I have the ingredients now. I went out and finally bought some stuff last week, and I'm dying to make one, so I'll have to do that here soon. And who knows, maybe that's how I'll start every podcast from here on out, is with a Cobra shot.
It was cool. Warcraft Jen and Bajira a couple weeks ago made a couple of our shots and said they were
Bendak?
I hear Dark Brew.
All right, I hear Delirium.
Hello?
I'm here. Sorry, I'm late.
No, that's all right. Welcome. All right, sorry about that, guys. Well, Bendak is here now. So just to recap, we're here with Arth from the WHU.
Formerly of the WHU.
Formerly of the WHU. Well, I don't know. You can never leave. It's like
That's true.
It's like the mafia. There's only one way out. So
I've still got my account. I could go back in and do more April Fool's jokes and stuff.
There you go. So yeah, well, welcome, Bendak. You haven't missed much. All we've covered so far is we talked about Michelle Morrow and Hearthstone, and then a few tidbits about 6.2, but we really haven't gotten into the Hunter stuff, and because we were hoping you would make it to talk about the new pet stuff that's going on. But cool.
Well, hold on a second, because chat room might not be able to hear us.
So it sounds like we're back. Yeah, we're getting reports that people can hear us. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, I see the stream is coming back on slowly on my machine. I'm going through the Heroes of the Storm ads again. All right. So is everybody back? Someone do a ready check.
Make sure your pet taunt is off.
Exactly. All right. So we've got Delirium, Bendak. Bendak's here joining us. I don't know if you guys heard that before we abruptly went off the air. Artemis, and of course we're talking with Arthemistia, former co-host of the podcast and former, I guess you were completely in charge of the WHU
for a little while,
one point in time, for that one brief period.
There was officially only for about 6 months, but unofficially, Frostheim was on his way out for a while, so it was the better part of a year that I was doing the majority of the blogging on the WHU. Obviously, I still wasn't as prolific as Frost was during his heyday, but yeah, it was actually longer than some people realized. But I don't miss the blogging so much. The podcast was always a lot of fun, though, and just staying up on the news, that's something I still do because that's a lot more passive. I don't have to be creating the content.
Awesome. Well, you're welcome to stay around and chat with us about anything World of Warcraft. But why don't we? I want to move on here a little bit, and let's get into some of the 6.2 stuff and Hunter stuff here. And now that Bendak's here, we can talk about the new taming challenge that took everybody by surprise, really, this weekend. That's coming in 6.2. So Bendak, why don't you talk a little bit about this one, since I know you wrote an awesome guide already up over at eyesofthebeast.com. This weekend, you've actually gone out there and tamed the new pet yourself. So what is Blizzard doing now for hunters in 6.2 here?
Well, it turns out for some reason everyone missed this one, but it's been in the PTR for 2 months now, and no one's seen it. But so Petopia, which is a hunter pet site, if no one's been there before, you should go check it out. They ran a contest on their forums for the first person to discover how to tame it would win a TCG mount, the corrupted hippogriff. So that got all of us out there looking for it, and it took about a day, but someone finally found it. And so it turns out we can tame one of the fell wolves in Tanaan Jungle.
Yeah, in Tanaan Jungle. So these are the one they look like Gara, but they're the green skin. So you've probably seen them. Well, if you're Alliance, there are bunches of them around Shadow Moon Valley. But as you said, they're aberrations. They're not beasts, I think, or even if they are beasts, they're not tameable. However, they're classified. So this is that green sort of fell wolf model, which is cool. And it is a wolf, right? So it's not a spirit beast, which means any hunter spec can tame it.
Yep. So basically, in order to tame it, you need to. There's this elite mob on Tanaan Jungle called Fel Rangari Anara, and basically you have to defeat her, and she drops this item, and you use this item on one of the fell wolves, and it temporarily turns them into a beast so that you can tame them. So the real challenge is killing this elite. It's quite a challenge to do it solo. I know me and Delirium were doing it for a while, and it gets you to use all of your hunter abilities. It's pretty neat.
Now, did you do it solo, or you guys did it together then?
I did it solo first, and another hunter came and helped me for a little bit. But and then me and Delirium killed it a few times just to, see what would happen. It turns out, like, the item that it drops, you only get one per kill, so if you're doing it with multiple hunters, you'll have to kill it multiple times to get everyone the item.
Okay. Now, does she have a long respawn timer, or is it pretty quick?
No, she respawns in 5 minutes, so it's not too bad. It might be rough on day one, but other than that, it shouldn't be too bad.
Right. And so, yeah, you were talking about, too, that, you sort of had to break out every ability in the toolkit, and you're not kidding too. I mean, let's talk about some of the things which is really cool, by the way, but it does make it a challenging, a taming challenge, yes, and challenge being the key word there. So why don't we talk a little bit about some of her abilities and what we need to do to counter them?
All right. So well, she does both melee and ranged attacks, so you're encouraged to kite her around because the ranged attacks, they don't really hurt that bad. As long as you have Spirit Bond with your pet, that should keep you healed up. And then she has this other ability that basically puts your pet to sleep for a full minute. And you can break your pet out with Bestial Wrath or Master's Call. So you kind of have to hold on to those until that happens. Because if your pet's asleep, it obviously can't tank for you. She casts this other ability, like AoE stuff that goes under your feet. You just have to get out of it because it hits you for like 120k. She'll frequently go into stealth mode, and she can attack you from stealth, so you have to get her out of stealth with your flare. She has a buff that increases her damage significantly. You have to tranquilizing shot that. And then she does a heal, and you have to counter shot that. So you have to juggle all this, and she's got like 5 million health, so it takes a long time to do it by yourself. So if you miss any of this, you can easily die, or she heals up to full health, and you got to start over. It's quite the challenge, especially if you're not like geared, because it'll take you a long time to chip away at all that health.
Yeah, I was going to say, so your character is mostly Blackrock Foundry Mythic gear, correct?
Yeah, it's almost eye level 700, and it still took me quite a while.
Yeah. Just
because your pet's out of commission for a lot of the time.
Well, that brings the question. I know you mentioned Spirit Bond being important, but I mean, Lone Wolf, like marksmanship or survival with Lone Wolf, is that a viable option then to kind of take the pet soothing out of the equation at that point, or are you just going to take too much damage yourself?
With Master's Call, there's no reason to. Your Master's Call is up as often as she uses Soothe. So it's just you just have to remember all your abilities and make sure they're all keybound, ready to use. And your pet will be up, almost 100% of the time.
Yeah, and unless you're really good at avoiding all the damage, you're going to want that constant healing. Because it's easy to make a mistake, and then all of a sudden there goes a third of your health.
Yeah, for anybody who's interested in getting into extreme soloing, with raid bosses and such, this is a great intro to that, I think. It's really, it'll stretch. If you're just a normal PvE hunter, you probably don't use a lot of these abilities too often.
No.
And so, getting used to, I think PvPers will have a very easy time with this. You're used to flaring, you're used to Master's Call. You don't have to really think about it. But if you're just kind of a normal and heroic mode raider, you're probably not using many of these too often. And it's good practice. It's not super punishing. I mean, you'll lose 30% of your health pretty quick, 60% of your health, but you can build that back up pretty quick, as long as you remember to trank almost immediately and to flare almost immediately. And so it's really good practice for getting into those more difficult extreme soloing raid bosses.
Yeah, because I wasn't used to using Master's Call, and Delirium's the one who told me to do that. So the first time I killed it, I didn't even use that. So my pet wasn't doing much.
Yeah, it's an odd ability too, only because the Master's Call, you command the pet to break people out. So I never really knew that it could be used to break itself out of a root or a stun or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I just tried it because I figured this, this NPC, fellow Rangari Inara, she's like made for hunters. So I thought, well, usually Master's Call wouldn't work on a hard CC like Soothe. Actually, I don't know about Soothe. What is that, a druid ability? But but a lot of them it doesn't work on. It only works on roots, and I think Bindak saw in the spell ID that it was a root, or it's classified as a root, even though it looks like a more hard CC.
Right. And then as far as kiting her, I mean, obviously there's concussive shot, but I think you guys found that almost all of our slowing abilities would work on her. So I mean, you just have to limit yourself to just that one ability.
Yeah, you can use your ice trap. I think you can even use your binding shot. It's not
Right, yeah.
It's not that difficult to kite her. And then
Binding shot worked, and
Yeah.
freezing trap works also. So if your pet dies because you forget to trank that buff, you can freezing trap her and have plenty of time to res your pet and get reset. And you can also use freezing trap, of course, to interrupt whatever her big heal is called. Do you remember what that's called, Bindak?
Tainted Light.
Right.
So
Yeah,
freezing trap will interrupt that too. So in addition to counter shot, we have a second way to interrupt her as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I assume, I didn't actually try this, but you could probably glyph explosive trap to add an extra interrupt in there.
Oh, by doing the knockback, yeah.
Right, and all the PvPers are probably saying, duh, of course you do these things. But for us PvEers, this hopefully is some new information.
Although it should be noted that because she's designed around hunters, that, for example, the ability that you have to interrupt, that like counter shot should be available every time you need it, for example, or...
Yeah, definitely. My big problem was I kept thinking I needed to interrupt something else, at least the first couple times I tried. And so I'd try to interrupt Soothe for some reason, and then counter shot wouldn't be on cooldown.
The first time I went, I'm like, I just walked in. I'm like, oh, I'm geared. I'm just gonna blow this up, and that didn't work.
And the other big one for interrupting, if PvEers aren't familiar with it, you can feign death to interrupt a cast on yourself. So if you want to just stand still as marksmanship and get rid of a couple of the abilities she's casting, you can just feign death out of them, and she'll stop casting and then go do something else. As long as you don't have it glyphed.
Yep. So anyway, after you kill her, you get this item. You take it to the wolf, which is in another area of Tanaan. It's in the post, but you just basically use it on the wolf, and it stops attacking you, and you just have a minute to tame it. Now, I'm not sure if another hunter could walk in and yank it from you, or how that works, but I would just, if it were me, I'd probably just go in a little corner and do it so no one kills it. But if you do, for some reason you do mess up the tame, You can always get another vial from her.
Yeah, and that's cool. I think it's a very, like I said, the couple things surprised me. One is that it's taken this long to discover the challenge. Of course, if there was no hints or announcement about it, I mean, it's understandable that you wouldn't know to look for it. I'm just curious how they found out about it. Does anyone know how the folks at Petopia, were they told, or?
You know what? I think one of them just discovered it, and then they decided, well, the community hasn't seen this yet, so let's just put on this little contest for fun. Mm-hmm. I think that's how it happened. Because I have a funny story. When the PTR first went up, on day one, I was running around Tanaan just looking for new pets, and I came across this NPC, the Fel Rangari, and I attacked her, and she started putting my pet to sleep and all this stuff. I'm like, screw this, I don't have time for this, and I moved on. That was 2 months ago. So I could have discovered it back then if I would have just... I should have realized that if it has an ability specifically to put pets to sleep, but oh well.
This is what I like about Rangari, fellow Rangari, Anara, is that she's designed around hunters. So I think my favorite pastime is I'm just going to park myself and sit there in front of her and watch all the lesser classes go by and attack her, thinking that she's one of those rare mobs that drops a battle pet or a mount or as part of an achievement, and just watch them get destroyed.
Yeah, I don't know how many classes would have trouble with that. I think melee could take her down pretty easy.
Yeah, well, but I don't know. Do they have she goes into stealth, so I don't know how many classes have the ability to break her out of stealth, and I think that's where they'll
right. Yeah, I don't know
problems.
how long she stays in stealth.
She stays in for quite a while, like at least 15 or 20 seconds, and she keeps dropping attacks on you, those AOE attacks. So
right.
Yeah, that's my thought, is that's the one ability that will trip people up. Although I wonder if she'll also put like a warlock pet to sleep and as well.
Good.
Of course, there aren't going to be any more demonology warlocks anymore, apparently, I guess, right?
Good.
Oh, God. I was waiting for him to say something like that about survival.
Right?
Yeah, we don't like survival right now, so sorry.
We didn't want you to play it.
Maybe next year. Overall, dev stuff.
Well, we should talk about that. That's a good segue. Why don't we get into some of the hunter changes that are happening for 6.2 and just kind of do a review of everything, and we'll talk about survival. But yeah, I mean, for those if you didn't watch the live stream, basically, Watcher Dev said it was Demonology's turn to be the worst warlock spec, and like I said, he could have easily said the same thing about survival. It's survival's turn to be the worst hunter spec. Unfortunately, we were hoping that would change, but let's just go through some of the basic changes, like things like aspect of the fox is going away if anyone still uses it now. I mean, we've kind of talked about that, but I don't know. I still don't know why it needed to go. I kind of liked having that little bit of utility, and I mean, did you see any issues with it, Artemis, in the mythic rating that you do? I mean, was it problematic? Were you guys just exploiting the hell out of it?
I'm sorry.
Easy?
With Fox removed, I totally zone out.
Yes, with Fox removed.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't see too many problems without it. I mean, I would like it for marksman personally, but...
Yeah. But I mean, when you did have it, or when you use it in your mythic raids, I mean, did you feel like, oh my god, this is the most powerful thing, in the game, and that therefore,
Blackhand phase 1, yes. Other fights, most fights it was like trivial. I used it here and it was smart. Oh, good, that helped out a lot. But if we didn't have it, it wouldn't be a big deal, The only fight I felt it was like super trivial on, like again, was like Mythic Blackhand demo phases. Like it was crucial.
Is that where you needed like 3 hunters to do it, basically?
Be back live now.
Well, this is going to be a fun show to edit, by the way.
Yep.
Actually, we don't usually have to do too much editing with the shows. This one will be a little different.
Yeah.
Once again, I apologize for what I assume is my fault with all this.
That's right. We'll just blame Arth.
How dare you?
The
Right.
ghosts of technical issues past.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that
Nice.
I'm doing the YouTube videos, that might be interesting to edit.
Yeah. Like I was about to ask if hey, is Twitch going better than the old Google thing that we had? But I didn't want to say anything because I knew I was gonna jinx it. I knew
Right.
I knew it was just gonna blow up if I said anything. If someone was like, "Oh yeah, Twitch is going great. We haven't had any technical difficulties in weeks." But apparently, my mere presence ensured that it was just all gonna fall apart this week.
Yeah. No, Twitch has actually been pretty good. We've been pretty happy with it, I think. We haven't had a day like this in a long, long time, unfortunately.
Well, what's going to happen is that Sith's going to throw his hands up, say fuck it, and then going to say, oh, we forgot to record this whole episode.
Yeah.
All right. Wouldn't be the worst news in the world.
So I tried to talk Artemis into singing for you guys in the chat room while we were out, unsuccessfully. So I apologize, but
Whoa.
Yeah, she's been composing new Hunter songs while we've
That's
been
right.
away.
that's right.
I don't want to break anyone's headphones. Relax.
We got a little
I
Bob
respect
Marley
the
meets
listeners.
Bob Marley meets Hunters. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss you already. One love, one heart. Let's get together and hunt all night.
Although,
in,
Arth,
the, in the style of William Shatner. I wasn't actually singing that.
that's right.
I was sad that the call dropped.
Although, Arth, you were saying even though that you've got some WoW music that you might be willing to release over to the WHU Facebook page at some
Yeah.
point here, not
Absolutely.
today or tomorrow, but some day in the future, you've got.
Yeah,
So that would be cool.
For the sake of the chat room, since we were down for a little bit, I do some recording. I'm a violinist, and I've got some WoW music that I've been meaning to get to, among others, like a violin transcription of the Grizzly Hill theme, and it's just something I do as a hobby now. At one point, it was something that I did semi-professionally, but it's been supplanted by other things. So it's just something I do for kicks now. But at one point, I mentioned it on the WHU Facebook page, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll let you guys know when it's done." And that was months ago, and real life intervened. But yeah, it's good. It'll happen at some point. So all these little side projects here and there when I have time that are fun to stay involved with it, because you do miss it. I can't devote as much time as I want, but there's still fun ways to stay involved, whether it's doing some of the real life stuff at Renaissance fairs or things like this. You're at least staying active with stuff that you love.
All right, well, let's get back on track here just a little bit. We've had this one note. It's been here every show, and I don't think we've really talked about it. Maybe one time, but there was a change to pets, and that exotic pets are now tameable at level 10. And I think I heard about it first from you, Bendak. But that was one of those. Is that still the case? I mean, has anyone noticed it? I mean, a change on the PTR. It's not documented in the patch notes anywhere, but I don't know. Somebody noticed that. I think it might have been you.
Yeah, it wasn't documented, but yeah, it's still level 10. It's the reason I think no one noticed is because it's one of those passives that they took out of the spell book. So people just didn't see it. But yeah, tame level 10 now.
Which is nice. So, for example, in which I always thought was a good idea. I mean, exotic pets were introduced, I believe, in Wrath of the Lich King. So by then, you were talking about being level 80 or approaching that. So it kind of made sense, since most hunters were already a high level when that was introduced into the game. But ever since they changed it so that you get those specializations at level 10 and you could become a beast mastery hunter at level 10, I always felt like, exotic pets at level 69, I think is where it was, didn't make a whole lot of sense, especially once they introduced more and more new pets into the game and more exotic skins that were at levels lower than level 69. I think Cataclysm was the one that really changed that and allowed them to introduce the exotic pets at lower levels. But so what are some? Why don't we just give some folks an idea of a few of the pets you can get at level 10 or not necessarily at level 10, but low levels. Though, if you're going to be leveling a new hunter, and I always encourage people to level a hunter.
Well, Dark Brew, what do we have on the menu today? We got Kirkin on the Blood Mist Isle. He's a low-level corehound. What about Glint, the rare shale spider in the Arathi Highlands? And let's not forget about Nath, the rare worm in Silver Pine Forest. Delirium, why don't you take off the rest?
That was well done. Thanks, Artemis.
There's
I
still
don't know
more
how far
pets.
you got.
Please.
I think when we were compiling this list was just looking through Petopia for any rares that were available. I think the shale spider's a big one. Actually, it's probably not the case anymore. What else? Something else gives stats now, right? Anybody know what else gives a stats bonus other than shale spiders?
I don't know if there's an exotic pet that does it. Shale spiders. That's like what, the Blessing of Kings sort of buff you're talking about?
Right. So you get
So you
agility.
get it. Yeah, you get it from dogs. Do that, and gorillas.
Well, at least it used to just be shale spiders. So
I know this because the gorilla is Blessing of Kongs is the name of the buff, which is awesome.
oh right, and
There's
Bark
also,
of the Wild.
yes, my favorite one, Bark
Bark.
of the Wild.
I love that too. It's just like, it's just great. So it's like, paladins and druids, we no longer need you. Thank you for your services. Yep. You can go home now.
Get out.
Cool. By the way, Artemis, whatever it is that you started drinking in the middle of the show, you need to do that before every show because that was awesome.
Oh,
By the way. So, well, let's talk about the specs, and maybe we should start with Beast Mastery because we think, at least I think that's one of the specs. Would be one of the two specs that everyone's going to be wanting to have in their repertoire. So I don't care who. Artemis, you want to talk a little bit about Beast Mastery, or do you want to talk about marksmanship? Which one's your favorite
you know
here?
what? Why don't we talk about Beast Mastery? Second best to marksman, but still comes close.
Yes.
And what should we talk about today? The 2 set or the 4 set?
How
2
about
set for BM.
both?
That's a great idea. So arcane shot and multi-shot increase the duration of your focus fire by, isn't it 1 second now?
Is it 1 second now?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the old notes. So yeah, 1 second. They changed it. It was 3 seconds, which was amazing because you'd have like perma focus fire, but they didn't like that.
Well, it seemed a little broken because you would just get like a 5 stack of focus fire going on, pop that, or I'm sorry, 5 stack of frenzy. You pop that, you would have like focus fire for infinity and beyond because 3 seconds is a big duration extension, especially if you picked up like, I don't know, Thrill the Hunt. So this kind of balances it out and actually makes it so you actually press the button more than one time in a fight.
Right.
So we got the 4 sec going on. Your focus fire also summons a Fellbore to assist you. The Fellbore does a ton of damage. I don't know if they nerfed it or anything. Have you guys seen that lately?
They did, yeah.
Or, does it still do a ton of damage? Like,
Does an average amount of damage now.
Doesn't it hit? Yeah.
What were you going to say, Vendek?
I was going to say, doesn't it hit just as hard as the current 4-piece in terms of damage per hit?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just going to be up for longer because you'll focus fire up longer than you had Bestial Wrath up.
The Fellbore is going to be up for as long as focus fire is up. So if you can get that focus fire to extend, as long as you can, you're going to have more of the piggy. Your preferred stats are still going to be haste and mastery for obvious reasons. I think mastery does affect the Fellbore pet. There's hope.
Right. So what is this? How does did this change focus fire then? Once we get that 2-piece, I guess. Once you get 2 pieces, and then of course moving on to 4 pieces, how does that change at all? How we currently use focus fire? Because right now we've got like you do almost need an add-on and a little thing popping up on your screen to say hit the button now, and there's all sorts of rules that suggest when we ought to be using it. Do those rules stay the same, or is it going to change now? Basically, are we going to want to get 5 stacks every time as much as we can for focus fire?
The only change I've seen is it's in 6.1 as it currently is. There's no time where you really want to cancel focus fire and reapply. And in the new version, if you have lower stacks of focus fire, it's looking like, I don't know if any of the numbers are finished yet, but it's looking like you're going to want to go ahead and cancel the lower frenzy stack focus fire and reapply with a higher frenzy focus fire with your 5 stacks, which really only matters at the beginning of the fight or if you do something for Bestial Wrath, stuff like that. As it originally was, that was very important. and now it's less so with the nerfed Felbor. But it's so far like spending the extra GCD seems to be worth it. Other than that, I guess everything's the same.
Okay, so you're still going to want to just say, let's say if you got a stack of it, you want to pop it like when you're about to go into Bestial Wrath, for example, rather than trying to wait and build up the stacks.
Right, yeah, you're not going to want to delay Bestial Wrath to have 5 stacks. Though if you can continue, if you can spam some arcane shots during Bestial Wrath to drag out that focus fire as long as possible, that's not going to hurt at all.
And for the most part, BM will still be very viable if you have to find yourself moving a lot come next year progression. Still, if you can like sit somewhere and chill and be able to like reduce your movement by minimal amount, you'll find marksman will be good on majority of these fights actually, even ones with AoE on them.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we know that marksmanship has pretty crappy AoE, whereas Beast Mastery has pretty strong AoE. And I haven't looked at these fights too much in Hellfire Citadel, but and to know how much AoE situations there are. And are there a lot? I mean, almost every fight. It's very rare, obviously, to have single target fights. Everything involves adds in some way, shape, or another.
Right, and that definitely continues to be true. But what we do see is a lot of high priority targets, especially in the first, half. Really, throughout the fight, throughout the raid, there's a lot of fights where you need something burned down quickly. You don't need to necessarily spam AOE, and I think that's kind of the trouble with Beast Mastery right now. Is while it does do way better AOE than any of the other hunter specs. Just heads and shoulders better than survival or marksman at AoE. It's not as good as a boomkin. It's not as good as a warlock. I think there's a lot of AoE classes that are just destroying AoE. So if you can pull off marksman, if you can get your mastery up decent uptime, if you can pull off the rotation, then it'll be more help to the raid to be, focusing on those priority targets and letting the kind of those silly support classes take care of the trash for you.
Right. So let's talk about marksmanship then, because it seems like that's going to be kind of back on top once again, just like it was at the beginning of the expansion.
As it should be.
So you're a big fan. So what's changed then with marksmanship? I mean, what do? They buffed aim shot, right? We know that it's going to deal about 15% more damage than it was, which is always good. But what else?
So it's up to 500% weapon damage. So your weapon damage plus your AP effect on weapon damage times 5. That's insane. This is the greatest trash shot ever. This is our focus dump. It's doing 5 times weapon damage. It's just great. I love it.
So your game plan from, like, if you're going to heroic first week, you should, even if it's that kind of poorly, you should try to get a higher item level weapon as soon as you can. Just to get yourself going for mythic.
The best way to do that might be to craft one.
Is it going to be the crafted? You mean like through the craft the engineering gun and upgrade that?
Well, if you want a high item level weapon quickly, it's probably your best bet.
Right.
It can go up to 705. So.
Well, what
what's
about
the heroic weapon that drops off the first boss? We talked about this in chat and I forgot. Oh, ouch! Yeah.
I think that's the normal, isn't it? 695.
No. First 4 bosses on heroic will be, I think 695. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yep. It's
and then
like the best stats for BM too.
Right. And what can you get for Tanaan, the Tanaan? I don't know how you pronounce it. The jungle, Apexis. Isn't that a 695 weapon as well that you'll be able to get?
Yep, you can get that right away as long as you have.
How many crystals you need for that?
20,000. Plus, you'll need a weapon token, which you can get as a drop, most likely. And if for some reason you can't get it as a drop, you can buy one for 10,000 crystals.
Right.
So cool. You make the gun, then upgrade it, and it's 695.
Right. So for about 30,000 crystals, then you can just buy it right for the get go.
Yeah, and that should be better than a Blackrock Foundry heroic weapon. That's
Right, yeah. So especially for heroic or normal mode raiders, that's going to be a great option for
Yeah, see, I'm
really helping
using
out your raid.
the crafted gun, so I'm stuck at God, what's the eye level on that? 775, I believe is what it is.
675. Yeah.
675. Excuse me, 675. Yeah, so I don't have the 685 yet. Even it's ridiculous. So, I mean, that seems like a very quick path to getting an immediate upgrade would be to get that Apexis weapon. That's one possibility.
Yeah, especially if you're raiding on the first day, because
Sure.
I actually looked into this. You know how in order to get the recipes for the new engineering upgrades, you need to go to that garrison vendor,
Mm-hmm.
and those are on a rotation. I looked up the
All right.
rotation, and I looked down the calendar, and the engineering guy's not going to appear till Friday. So if you want to raid on Tuesday with a better weapon, it's probably your best bet is to get one of these Tanaan ones, because you won't be able to upgrade your engineering one till the weekend, and that's assuming you can afford all the Fellblight for it.
Right. And we already know that you're going to have to get that through fishing and mining, as well as this just doing the gathering when you're in Tanaan jungle.
Right,
So
yeah.
what?
If it's the same as it is on the PTR right now, I haven't played around in Tanaan jungle very much at all, but just the little bit of time when I was a couple of nights ago, I was looking for that pet with the Petopia challenge, and the Fellblight was dropping like crazy. Like I couldn't believe how little work it was to get a lot of Fellblight, so I wouldn't be worried about that cost you much.
I also think that the new world boss in Tanaan, every time you kill it once a week, you also get like a stack of 10 Fellblight.
Oh, I heard something about that too. Yes, he's going to drop a bunch.
So yeah, maybe it won't be too bad, because I think you only need like 15 for each upgrade, right? But
Yeah,
then
that's cool. That keeps the boss relevant for a little bit longer too, which is great.
So I guess the question then is, with the aim shot buff, I mean, going into 6.2 with your 4 pieces of tier 17, I mean, is switching over to marksman for single target, I guess, or most of those fights, still, is that worthwhile if you get that upgraded weapon?
Yes. If you're unable to get like something that's above 705 like day one, or you don't have like a mythic Warforged weapon right now, like you're probably gonna want to get yourself a crafty gun. Not everybody is a mythic rider, and we know that. So it's
No,
like
I'm not a mythic rider.
705 weapon is definitely a great thing to take advantage of.
I have 675, so 705 would definitely be the goal. I'll probably do the 695 as the stopgap, which will pretty much also guarantee that I'll get the weapon drop off the first boss, the first night.
Guaranteed, yeah.
Well, there's fights that drop like you can't get like a heroic 715 item level weapon. I'm pretty sure. Let me triple check that actually. You guys carry on. Sorry.
No. So now you were talking about mastery. Did you mention? I hear you mentioned mastery delirium for marksmanship as a possible good stat to have.
I would not consider that.
No, yeah,
No.
it's still lower than the crit and multi-strike.
And versatility. Versatility is even equivalent to multi-strike right now.
But it's not. I mean, it's still something we're gonna have, and you're gonna have to use well to get the most out of marksmanship.
And see, that's my dilemma, at least, since I've been playing Beast Mastery this whole time. All the stats on my gear are geared towards Beast Mastery. It's all haste and mastery. So I've got nothing that really benefits marksmanship whatsoever. So I'm just pretty concerned that, my marksmanship damage is going to be garbage because I don't have the secondary stats to support it. So, and the only thing I think I can really control, of course, would be the gems in enchants, which I could swap out.
I wanted to make a correction to what I said earlier about the 695 weapon. Heroic, the first 4 bosses will actually drop 705, so you can't get a 705 weapon from, I think it's Iron Reaver.
It's the first boss, actually.
Hellfire Assault. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so then it won't be an automatic drop. So my 60k or whatever, or 30k won't be total waste, but...
You can also still get in Heroic a 715 item level weapon from Manaroth, and you can also get a 710 from Sorathar. I hate that guy's name. Sorathar.
I liked him though. He was part of that quest in Shadow Moon Valley. I don't know if the Horde got to see him become Sokrathar or whatever his name is either. That was more of an alliance thing, but I don't know. Cracked me up. So that's good. Yeah, I guess we can talk. Let me just talk a little bit more about weapons, because somebody in the one of the questions yesterday from the dev Q&A was asking about why were there no 6 agility weapons off of Archimond, basically. And I'm not sure I understood the answer. I don't know that I like the answer. There wasn't really a good reason for it. What did you guys think of that?
I don't like it.
If this is the last raid of the tier, then it doesn't matter at all. We'll have our, weapons going into the last progression boss. And I kind of agree with Watcher. It only affects people trying to get top parses. If there is another raid tier after this, then it means we're behind everybody else going into the next raid tier, which is kind of lame. So, I don't know.
I would have to think that there's another raid coming in this expansion. I mean, they haven't announced it or anything, but it just seems odd that this would be the last one, because I just can't imagine the next expansion coming that soon, that we wouldn't be stuck in Hellfire Citadel for almost as long as we were in Siege of Orgrimmar,
I highly doubt it's last
Right.
year.
How many tiers have there been, like relative to other expansions?
3.
Yeah, this will be
tiers.
the well. Yeah, I mean, as far
in
as
other expansions.
actual tier gear, this will be the second set of tier gear that
Okay.
we've gotten in Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah, and usually there's one more. I'm trying to think historically.
I don't think they've ever done fewer than 3.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they've done 4, so I would think.
Yeah, I think Wrath went from like 7 to 10, if I remember, right? Something along those lines.
Right, yeah. Wrath had, I believe, 4 tiers. They had, Nax
Yeah.
and Ulduar, and Trial of the Crusader had a set of tier gear, and of course, ICC. So they had 4
And
4 sets
the,
of tier gear there.
Ruby Sanctum.
Yep.
Yep.
It was another, little half raid or whatever.
Yeah.
0.5.
Here's what I think they'll do. I think they'll put out another tier in like November, right after
Yes.
BlizzCon.
Yep.
I don't
And
think
then-
they will, because I think they'll be putting out the beta for 7.0 about that time.
I think they'll be doing that too. I think they'll be doing both those things.
Well, they could easily do both, but they don't want another year-long raid tier. They know better. They know better.
So I think what you were saying is right, Bendek. I think the next tier for Warlords of Draenor, the final one, would be sometime right after BlizzCon, and I also think they'll do the expansion announcement at BlizzCon and probably start alpha, beta right around there, and then line up the release of the expansion with the movie. Time frame.
It might not be like a really long tier. It might only be like
Mm-hmm.
9 or 10 bosses, but
Yep.
I think there'll be another tier for sure.
Yeah, that's my feeling as well. Cool. So with the 4-piece, let's talk. So let's go back to marksmanship real quick and talk about their tier set bonuses. So they've got the. Is there something wonk? What's up with the rapid fire buff that you gain from the 2-piece? Is it? And
So
how does
it's working as would be expected at this point, as of just a couple builds ago on the PTR. So you have 4 seconds of rapid fire and careful aim, where you get plus 50% crit on your aim shots. So that's all normal. What's kind of weird about it is, well, it sounds like, this is something you'll be getting often. It's a 40% chance every time your chim shot crits, which is if you have the soft cap, of crit, which is pretty much only Mythic Raiders, in tier 18 gear Mythic Raiders, you'll have about a 50% chance of getting a crit every 9 seconds. And then that 50% chance, you'll have another 40% chance roll. So about 20% of the time, your chim shot will proc this. So that's 1 out of 5, which is every 45 seconds-ish. So 4 seconds every 45 seconds. It's not very often. And it's
Basically,
only,
it sucks.
yeah, it's just there. I mean, you can definitely do some things to take advantage of it. You want to be pooling your focus for every chim shot just in case it procs, so you can spam out some aim shots and get the auto crits. But In general, yeah, it's not going to do that much damage for you.
And I mean, and the 4-piece just makes our aim shot instant cast. So, the benefits of rapid fire. I mean, what does it benefit at that point? I mean, the main benefits from
Right.
rapid fire.
Well, the careful aim is the biggest
The careful
benefit.
that's
right, the
right.
plus 50 crit,
And then I
which
guess
is awesome.
and if
And
you're
the-
using focusing shot, I guess if you're taking that, obviously
Right.
you'll benefit from that as well.
Yeah, so Bendak, I think you were looking at kind of stat weights a couple weeks ago, and haste isn't as terrible as you would expect, right?
Yeah, I thought it would be terrible because you're not casting anything, but apparently the stampede and all that it still keeps the value up there. Not like that you're going to be enchanting for it. It's just it won't be quote like a garbage stat,
Right. It's not even as bad as it is for survival.
Yeah. So I mean, if you see a piece of gear with haste, it's not like, oh, that's terrible. Like, I'm gonna avoid that. It's like, it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world,
Yeah.
Still going to want to go for as much crit as you can, but.
And while we're on the topic, Turtles All Night from the chat room had a question related to this. He said, with the tier 18 bonus being instant aim shots, would you want to save rapid fire for when the target hits 80% to extend the careful aim bonus, or use it as usual on the pull? Does it change the strategy at all once you get the 4-piece with how you want to use rapid fire?
Yeah, I haven't actually looked into this deeply, but my kind of suspicion is you'll still be using on the pull on the majority of fights. The haste and all that will be useful, and unless it's a really short fight, being able to get an additional rapid fire off will be more useful than saving it and getting you're not going to get much extra careful aim time unless it's a super short fight.
Here's why you want to rapid fire up. You're going to play with focusing shot, or even with or without it. You will get more aim shots in by getting your focus regen way up there, so your careful aim usage will be more beneficial. Therefore, yes, please use rapid fire on the pull. Unless there's some crazy theory crafting out there that I haven't seen yet, I still think it's just normal.
Yeah, there are other benefits to haste than just the cast time of your aim shot. So.
All right. Well, why don't we talk about the final spec, the one that we just sort of.
There's only 2 specs.
Yeah, there are only 2 specs, and that's really is the problem. So we have something in there called survival, and I guess we are allowed to. We can choose it if we want.
Survival's turn.
It is survival's turn to be the worst hunter spec in World of Warcraft, unfortunately. And by a lot too, right? Nothing's changed. I mean, it's weird because we see that there was a nerf to explosive shot and there was a buff to mastery, and none of that seems to matter at all. I mean, so what's happened with it? I mean, you guys have looked at it. I mean, it's just falling way behind, period.
Yeah, I mean, so when they removed the initial Serpent Sting tick from Arcane Shot, they just totally neutered the spec. That was so much damage that it was doing before, and now your Serpent Sting hardly matters. It's just there. I mean, it's a dot. It gives you a little damage, but it's like, 5k, 10k every 3 seconds. Nothing to write home about. No way to increase it or get more out of it.
There's no reason to refresh it before it expires, basically.
Right, yeah. So if you're doing a multi-target fight, you're just going to continue your single target rotation, except for until you're over, I think, 6 or more, you can spam, maybe it's 7 or more, you can spam multi-shot just for that physical damage, but in general, you're better off just using Arcane Shot normally. There's no benefit to go into there's no kind of AoE rotation at all. Just every 15 seconds hit multi-shot, and then go back to your single target.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I know there are a lot of people that still like the spec. I know some folks that have been using it pretty regularly, pretty steady. In BlackRock Foundry, and I think they're going to be unpleasantly surprised by their damage output when Hellfire Citadel gets here. And as you said, I think mainly it's because of that serpent sting nerf, that change to the damage tick.
I think it might just be as simple as that they didn't like that mechanic, and so they just took it out. And it's the same reasoning as the Warlock thing. They don't like how the spec played, so they're gonna nerf it so no one plays it until they fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess if you're looking for a silver lining, there have been entire expansions where we were lucky to have 2 specs to play. So like, I don't want to try to lipstick a pig here. I realize there are survival adherents that would love to play either all 3 or specifically survival, but it actually sounds pretty par for the course. As an outsider looking in, knowing what the last few expansions gave us too. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, if you can talk seriously about 2 of the specs for like high level rating, that's better than we sometimes have had it. So hopefully they do bring this up, though. It sounds pretty terrible at the moment.
Yeah, in the big picture of all of WoW rating, I think it's not as behind as other specs have been in the past. But it's still, kind of compared to 5.4, the specs were so well balanced. For a while in BlackRock Foundry, the specs were all playable. Marksmanship didn't have the AoE, but it had great single target burst, and both survival and BM were used on the first Blackhand kills by lots of hunters. They were all very playable and great, and just so well balanced. And so now going to this, it's just they set up our expectations too much.
Yeah, I guess that's the downside of the mythical balance that everyone always wants. As soon as they get all 3 specs playable, then inevitably the next raid tier or next expansion, like everyone will be griping because now suddenly only 2 of them or only 1 of them in certain situations.
Yeah, no, you make a great point there, and it's like there have been opportunities to play all 3 specs in the raiding environment this expansion, which is unusual. I mean, usually what happens is one dominates that particular tier, and then they make some tweaks, and then the next tier comes around, and something else, kind of moves in front. And we seem to have shuffling, a little bit of shuffling throughout this entire expansion. A couple things changed, during not Hellfire Citadel. What was the High Mall? Excuse me. Yeah, for the High Mall raid, for example, and BlackRock Foundry's been pretty steady, and now we're going to have another shift going into Hellfire Citadel, where the marksmanship BMs I don't think is that big a deal. It's just more that seeing survival kind of get really pushed out of the way. Has been a little bit disappointing.
Over on Final Boss yesterday, after the Q&A went over, he was making a theory, a tinfoil hat, about they were nerfing the Warlock spec so that they could turn it into a tanking spec. And if that's the case, then yeah, we might be getting a tanking spec someday.
Melee Hunter confirmed.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
I won't complain about it if that's the case.
If they give us a dedicated tanking spec, I'm coming back to WoW.
Well, we almost had it with BM when you were doing your soloing. So, yeah, that would be fun.
There'd be a lot of complaining, but at the same time, yeah, it would be real interesting. And it would make it so they wouldn't have to balance 3 DPS specs.
Right.
Do we want to talk about the class trinket?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we should bring that up
has
again.
Some set bonuses. Nobody
They
cares
do,
about
but
them,
they well, you're going to get your set pieces no matter what. So but what is survival's set bonuses? Because I've hardly looked at them. Oh yeah, Black Arrow increases the elemental damage done to the target by 15% for 15 seconds. That's your 2-piece, and then the 4-piece is explosive shot causes a shadow nova on targets afflicted by your Black Arrow.
Right. So I actually love the 2-set bonus. I think it's incredibly interesting and fun. It has a huge impact on your rotation if you want to get the most out of it, or you can just play as normal and still get a little bit of bonus from it, which I think is a great way to do a set bonus. If the numbers were tuned well enough that this was a competitive spec, I think it would be a great set bonus. So, you have Arcane Shot and Explosive Shot are your big elemental damages other than your dots. And if you can go down to almost no focus, use up all your focus during Black Decay, which is the name of the spell for the 2-set, and then just cast your focus regen shots while it's down until you cast another Black Arrow, and then eat through all your focus. It's just there's a lot you can do with multi-dotting too, to make sure you're using the most out of your Black Decay. Or you can just do your rotation as normal, as I mentioned, and you'll still get a little bit of bonus, but it won't hurt you at all.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So let's just to wrap up. Oh, let's talk about the trinket. So the Talisman of the Master Tracker. Of course, this is the Archimon trinket, right? So this drops off the final boss.
Correct.
In the raid, so you're not going to get it on right away or something. Although I suppose there's an opportunity to get it from your garrison mission. So who knows what'll happen there? But
is there?
I mean, your shipyard missions.
The ship march.
Is it confirmed or?
I don't know. I'm just speculating. It would.
I read somewhere that you can get items from any of the quote eye level tiers, I guess.
Wow, that's insane.
Well,
but they did make a change to that though. I don't think you can get. You used to get, say you're progressing in heroic, you get mythic missions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they do that anymore. Like you're only going to get missions for the difficulty you're actually playing.
Oh wow! Well, that is a big change,
including Raid Finder. So if you're only doing LFR, you're just going to get Raid Finder boxes.
I mean, in some ways that makes sense. I mean,
it does, because like so many of the mythic pieces I have are from missions, and then I get them, and then I kill the boss. The item drops, and it's like, well, actually,
you don't need it.
Yeah,
you don't need it unless it's Warforged or something. And sometimes you even maybe get the Warforged, right? So yeah. No, we've talked about that even in our own guild, that it kind of makes killing some of those bosses feel a little bit irrelevant, especially if you've seen it on a lower difficulty. You've kind of got the feel for it. You sort of feel like you've gotten the experience of killing it, and then you go into, say, normal to heroic, and you've already got the gear from that boss. Killing it doesn't feel like it matters nearly as much as it did before. But the trinket, of course, is going to have some spec-specific abilities to it. So it's going to, it'll change and have different abilities, different procs, depending on the spec that you choose. So we should let's review those one last time. Artemis, do you want to run through them?
Oh, well, certainly, Dark Brew. It's my pleasure. So, if you happen to be a Beast Mastery Hunter, your Bestial Wrath now lasts an additional 30 seconds on your pet, and it increases your pet damage by an additional marginal percentage. We don't know if that's being changed yet, do we?
Yeah, and it's different per tier. So whatever difficulty you're on, you get a little bit higher percent.
And if you're Survival, you get the best class trinket of all time. It's called Blackness. Your arcane shots and multi-shots now have a 22% chance to reset the cooldown of Black Arrow.
It's actually up to, I think it's 76, 86, and 100% for normal, heroic, and mythic now.
Wow. That's right. That's right.
Ridiculous.
That's right. The abilities, the procs on this scale, depending on the item level of the trinket itself. So it's not a flat rate. So the higher the item level, the better your trinket.
Yeah, so at 100%, though, it's not actually any better, because you don't need Black Arrow every time you cast a arcane shot.
Yeah, no kidding. Be good for a multi-target. But
so are you going to be like multi-dotting now with your is that the idea? I mean,
I guess, yeah.
So Solar actually came to me this week and said, hey, I've got this idea for how we're going to make Survival the ultimate ultimate spec for AoE. We're going to bring it back. And so he gave me some data he'd been working on to try to create an APL in SimC and see if we could get the computer to do a better rotation than we were doing. And I worked on it for hours trying to get everything to do exactly like he was saying and suggesting. And this was it was basically prioritizing Black Arrow over everything and making sure you had Black Decay up on each ability, only using Explosive Shot when it was free and on a Black Decay target, and then going on to keeping Black Arrow up because it does so much more damage than any other ability per cast. So it's just this it was going to be this great, but it turns out we just didn't have enough focus to do it. So you can only really get 100% uptime on about 3 targets. And then after that, you're just not going to have enough focus. Even with the 100% chance to reset Black Arrow, you just can't keep it up on like 4 or 5, 6 targets. So you're not getting any more benefit after 3 targets. I don't know if that made sense how I described it, but
It did.
So after all that work, we were still about, I don't know, 20k below Beast Mastery on like a 4-target fight.
A lot of effort and skill involvement that
Yes.
doesn't give you any benefit
Right.
out of it. Ridiculous. Well, at least for the last one though, Marksman gets this sweet thing called long view. Basically, your shots deal a percentage of damage, increased damage per yard between you and the target. So the further out you are, the more damage you're going to be doing with it. It's not the best trinket in the world for marksmanship because there's some fights you're going to be hugging the boss and you can't do anything about it, but it does have some benefit on a few fights.
Yeah, so when playing with it on the PTR, it was fun to have it as a backup trinket. Like if we had the right comp where I could stand at 40 plus yards the whole time, then it was fun to do. And a healer who didn't mind following me around to make sure I was in range. It's fun to try to see how far out you can get, but it's since it's the last boss, obviously, it's not going to be a part of progression rating. It's not going to be super important to progression rating.
I mean, it will if you're going from, say, heroic to mythic or something.
Mythic, yeah.
Right, yeah, that's a good point.
That's when you start to get the benefit, but or even normal to heroic. I think that's.
And I don't off the top of my head remember what the percents are, but for the normal trinket, it's 0.3% per yard. So at 40 yards, you're getting. I can't remember. Somebody do math. What's 40 times 0.3? 12%.
Yeah.
I want to be able to stand at the instance entrance and shoot something. It's really real.
I guess
Isn't
since
it
you're saying
still
you have all
bugged?
that mastery gear.
Right.
maybe.
That's right. Just load up on mastery and then stand at the entrance to the instance and then just shoot everything. If it went for the line of sight, that would work.
Isn't it still capped at 40 yards though?
No, it's working past 40 yards now.
Okay.
The only thing that doesn't work is barrage, which has never worked for this whole expansion for greater than 40 yards. So don't pick barrage, which is the only way MM can do significant AoE damage. So either stand at 40 yards for barrage or pick power shot. Slave toss, yeah.
All right.
I don't know if they'll fix that. Who knows? It seems like people complain about barrage hitting targets that are too far away. So I don't know if maybe they added this bug on purpose.
Yeah, well, that covers all the changes in 6.2, and I know with all the starts and stops, I have no idea how far into things we are, but I think we're close to the end. We do have one email which I'm pretty sure we didn't read last time, so why don't we read that and then get on with our day here? And this was from Lirat, and he was asking a question about bonus armor. I thought it was an interesting question. He said, would picking up gear with bonus armor help with soloing, or would the extra DPS secondary stats still be a better option? Any thoughts from anyone?
Bonus armor doesn't work for hunters. It only works for tank specs. So it'll be, if you put it on a piece with bonus armor, it'll gray it out. Unless something's changed that I haven't heard about, it's not going to do you any good at all. It'll just be a stat you don't get.
Yeah, basically what he said. Don't pick up bonus armor stuff, man. Let the tanks have it. It's not good for us at all.
All right, so it's all hunter loot with an asterisk next to bonus armor, I guess.
Yes.
And when we were doing High Mall early on, before it actually started, I saw a ring on the black market auction house that was a Blackrock Foundry mythic ring. It was agility crit. This was when marksmanship was the top spec, or thought it was going to be the top spec. Agility crit and bonus armor, I think. And so I thought, oh, it's only 30k. Perfect. I'll just pick this up. and get all that agility and crit. And it turned out it was worse than even like some of the 630 rings you could get from
nice.
get from the dungeon. So I just threw away 30,000 gold, which, you know, at least it wasn't as expensive as other pieces on the BMAH, but it was a waste nonetheless.
Well, let's be honest. 30K is what, 2 days? Garrison missions?
Well, maybe for you people who do garrison missions.
Yeah, I do them. I'm not getting that much out of them. Certainly not on a daily basis, but I'm only really using the one garrison to run all those gold missions. But I don't know. They did hint that they might nerf that at some point, not for a single character, but for the folks that are running 12 garrisons at max level with full arsenal of treasure hunters.
Hey, I've only got 6 and 42 treasure hunters.
So this might be our last show before the patch, right?
That's what we're thinking. That's what we speculated at the top of the show, that we think that this will be the final show before the patch hits.
I just wanted to give one tip for people who want to get those Apexis upgrades from Tanaan.
Oh, yes. I saw you mention this. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you're already, your Apexis crystals, if you're capped already or close to capped, and you can manage to cap it, there's a way you can take in extra Apexis on top of the 60k. So those scouting missives that you can buy in your garrison to do those daily or garrison daily quests, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep. So if you go to your garrison vendor for 200 resources, you can buy a scouting missive that'll open up the quest for that particular Apexis mission, right?
So there's 12 of them. You can go do all 12 of them and don't turn them in, and then turn them in on patch day, and that's another 10,000 crystals you're bringing in. And you can get a mage tower, fill that with 36 work orders, and that's another 7,500 to 10,000 crystals. So you could walk in on day one and get 3 pieces of 695 gear.
Hey, that's pretty good. Now, those missives, can you only do one a day, or can you do as many as you want?
As many as you want. Yeah. I queued up about 10 of them in one day, so I just have to resist the urge to click that turn in.
The turn in and collect the rewards. Yeah. Well, I still need a few of those to do for my for the meta achievement.
Yeah, kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of which, if you need to get the flying, Wowhead has a guide up and also has a counter that will look at your account and tell you exactly what you have left to do on it. So, turns out I'm closer than I thought I was. And also, Your WoW Money podcast went into making gold in Tanaan Jungle this week. So, if you don't want to do it with garrisons, try that.
Oh, cool. What was that? Do you have an address for it?
Your
website?
WoW Money.
Cool.
They're on Twitch. They're on all the other usual places. iTunes, Stitcher, all that stuff.
Looks like yourwowmoney.com. So perfect.
Cool. Well, I think that's going to about do it for today. So the next time you hear us, hopefully we'll be well underway with patch 6.2 and, tackling the Tanaan Jungle and Hellfire Citadel. Arth, thank you for joining us. I was glad you could come in and listen to the show and hop on and say hello to everyone. We had it was fun having you back on there.
Thanks for having me. This time doesn't work out with my schedule too well, so it really has been a while. But I was happy that I was able to pop in. I was really just expecting to listen in on the podcast for the first time in a while, rather than listening to the recording afterwards. But it's nice to see it's still going. There's, I think, more regular hosts than ever. So it's going strong, definitely. But I'll be around. It might be a while again before I get to pop in and say hi again, but it was fun. I'm glad you guys had me.
Cool. Well, yeah, it was glad you were available. So it's good to chat with you one more time. So on that note, you have been listening to episode 219 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I am Dark Brew from thebrewhall.com and the Brew Hall on Twitter.
I'm Delirium from thrillofthewild.com and at Delirium Hunts on Twitter.
And I'm Bendak from Eyes of the Beast, Blizzard Watch, and Bendak WoW on Twitter.
And I'm Artemis L from the Warcraft Hunters Union and at Artemis Hal on Twitter.
Check us out on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or add our RSS feed to your reader, and we'll have all these links available in our show notes.
If you have a question or a topic you would like us to discuss on the show, email us at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com or send us a tweet at huntingpartypod.
Stay thirsty, my friends. Remember to drink your dark brew lager.
Siempre prestar la emoción de lo salvaje.
Keep your eyes on the beast.
Don't forget to pay your dues.
For the Horde.
And Nerf Canada.
There you go. I was waiting for it. I was like, oh, do I need to? Yeah, I figured you'd figure it out.
That's just the cost of being awesome sauce. The dues